Okay, so moving on to lab 4, let's go ahead and power on our vCenter or our VC. Before we do that, one thing we want to make sure our memory is 8 gigs. Because vCenter 6 does require, even for tiny deployments, minimum of 8 gigs of RAM. Go and click OK. Now I have 8 gigs of RAM, let's go ahead and power it on. We're going to walk through, again, the mini setup, because we did a sysprep on it. Should only take a few moments to power on. Alright, go ahead and choose the appropriate regional settings, skip the product key, accept the licensing, do our default password for our machine. Alright, so once it's on, go ahead and sign in. Once it signs in, let's go ahead and turn it off. We're going to be adding some additional hardware so that we can set this up to be several different items. So our VC, we're going to edit our virtual machine settings again, and we're going to add in an additional NIC. Network adapter. Here we're going to do a custom, but we want VNet 3. So one will be NAT, one will be VNet 3, that's appropriate. Power it back on. Our VNet 3 is going to be used for our storage. So we want to go ahead and get in there and verify that we see both of our NICs. We go to the Network and Sharing Center. So we have 2 NICs. One NIC, if you look at the details, should be part of the 246.network. That's fine. And one NIC should be part of the 3 network. And for now, that is okay. Let's look at the adapter settings so we can see both of them. We're going to go ahead and rename the second one iSCSI, and we're actually going to go ahead and manipulate both of them. We're going to be setting static addresses. So go to their properties. The first one should be 192.168.246. Make sure number lock is on. 192.168.246.20. The default gateway should be .2, and the DNS should be our domain controller, 246.19. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and label this MGT, and one's iSCSI. Let's go ahead and change the iSCSI. We're going to go ahead and set this to 192.168.3.20. Put a subnet, and that's all we need. No gateway, no DNS, because this is just for passing iSCSI traffic from our hosts to our SAN. Go and click OK, give it a minute, and you should be good. Alright, a few more things we have to do is let's go ahead and look at the server name. Server name is some random name. I'm going to do a computer description called vCenter. I'm also going to change the name to VC. And at this time, I am not going to do the domain just yet. Yeah, we are not going to add to the domain just yet. Go and click OK. It should freeze for a second, then it should rename it. We're going to postpone the restarting of it. So I want to do two more things while we're sitting here. We want to make sure that it has 2 processors and 8 gigs of RAM, which we already did. Next, we actually want to add some hardware. So right-click on your VC settings. We want to add 2 hard drives. Hard disks are at the very top. SCSI should be fine. Create a new virtual disk. We want to create 2 of them at 35 gigs. Call the first one iSCSI 1. Create a second one. 35 gigs. iSCSI 2. Click OK. Give it a second, so you should see 3 disks, and that should be good for now. Go ahead and restart your virtual machine. Once it's back on, we're going to be adding a few new services. Yeah, it should only take a few seconds. I'm going to log back in. Let's go ahead and add a role. We are going to add, before you begin, we're going to click on Next, installation type Next, server selection should be our server, go and click Next. Let's go ahead and go down to File and Storage Services, expand it out, expand out Files and iSCSI, and we are looking for server for NFS. Make sure it is checked. Add the appropriate feature. Add features. Click Next. Skip through the features. Skip through the confirmation. Click Install. Alright, installation will only take a little bit. Go ahead and close it. Next, let's go to our C drive. And let's make a new folder. We're going to call this folder NFS, all capital. It is case sensitive, so make sure to be careful. Go and right click on it. Click Properties. We should have a new share option. If you do not have an NFS share option, it is okay. Go ahead and restart. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. And I'm going to restart. Alright, restart it. Only took a few moments. Log back in. Navigate back to our newly created share. And notice we have a new NFS sharing option. Alright, let's go and go to NFS Sharing. We're going to manage the NFS share. We want to check NFS share. Share name, that's fine. Allow anonymous access. I take that back. Don't allow anonymous access. We're just going to go to permissions. Go ahead and make sure that the type of access is read and write. And we allow root access. All machines, that should be fine. Click OK. Go and click Apply and OK. And go ahead and close it. Let's go into it. Let's create 2 new folders. One called ISO. And let's create another one called Utilities. Or I'm going to shorten up UTILS. Alright, so that's it for this portion. We have 2 more parts in this lab. Let's go ahead and join our PC to the domain. To go back to where we name it, domain, data.local. And type in our password. As long as I didn't fat finger it, I should be able to access it. Alright, go ahead and restart. And the next part of this lab is setting up vCenter. Alright, so go ahead and log into our workstation. If it says VC, let's log into our VITA administrator. Alright, there we go. So now we need to go ahead and install a few programs. We need to install the VIM setup. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to my VM, removable devices, CD/DVD, and I'm going to click on settings. I'm going to go to ISOs, and underneath C drive in ISOs, there should be a VIM setup. It's about 3 gigs, that's what we want. Go and click OK, give it a second, and it should mount that disk. If it doesn't auto pop up, let's navigate to computer. Let's try that again. I mounted it, but I don't think I connected it. Give it a second for it to pop up. There it is. Go and double click on it. Let's go and run the installer. You'll notice here we have our update manager, we have our vCenter desktop client, and we have the vCenter for Windows. We want to go ahead and run the vCenter for Windows. If you don't have 8 gigs of RAM, you'll have a few problems. Click install, and this should pop up. Click on next. We're going to select next. Accept the user license agreement. Accept it. Next. We're going to be doing the embedded deployment. There are reasons to do the separation of the platform server and the vCenter server, so we're going to argue about those later. Our big thing now is just the embedded deployment because we're doing a small or tiny deployment. Click on next. System name. Next. You're going to get a warning. The specific name can be resolved to an IPv6 address. The name could not be found in DNS because, again, we're not doing IPv6. That's okay. Alright, so for the single sign-on portion, we're going to select a new password. For this, we're going to do password $1. $1. Password $1. Because we want this different from our main administrator. If we already have a vCenter single sign-on domain, we could join it here, but since we don't, that's okay. Notice domain name here is going to be vSphere.local. It's going to have its own admin. This is going to be the pre-default sign-on credentials for logging into vCenter. Go ahead and select next. We're going to go ahead and use a local account. That's fine. You can specify it if your environment calls for it, but for our environment, this is all fine. Next, we're going to use a embedded database. This is the important one. This may be different based off of your environment. For our environment, this is fine. Look at the ports. These are always good port exam questions. Click next. Here's the destination directory. Select next. I'm going to uncheck join the VMware customer experience. Click next. Verify and install. Installation can take a while, so be patient. So it did take a little bit to install. I'm going to go ahead and log into the web client just to make sure it works. So finish. If you've never used IE before, you may get a few prompts. That's okay. We are going to get a certificate error because, again, we are going to HTTPS and we don't have a correctly signed certificate. That's fine. If you keep getting the whole Java or Flash, what I would suggest is copying the URL and opening up Chrome and setting up Chrome so we can do everything via Chrome. Again, certificate error is going to happen. That's okay. To log in, we're going to be logging in as administrator at vSphere.local with the password reset in the single sign-on portion. Because we're using a separate domain for that login, which was vSphere.local, not vida.local. So that's important to distinguish. Once we can log in, that's actually it for this lab. The web client gets kind of sluggish, so we're just going to have to be patient with it. Okay, you'll notice that it's not so much a resource issue. Well, we are kind of using a lot of our memory, but it's always been kind of interesting. Systems with expired or expiring licenses in our inventory, we need to update our licensing, which we're going to do that in a later lab. We can get in, that was the point of this, close out of it. Thank you.